Well, I love this word even though I'm not a musician. Crescendo. Say that word out loud on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Crescendo. Kier's grandson just got baptized. She makes these graphics for us. It kind of preaches what a crescendo is, but I want to illustrate it. Here's the actual definition. An increase in excitement, danger, or action, or the moment when it reaches its highest point. So a crescendo can happen in many art forms. Let's talk about movie, cinematic history. Do y'all remember Jack? You can't handle the truth, right? The whole movie rises to a climax, and then he finally admits that he did order the code red. And he does it with Tom Cruise in this courtroom, and the movie reaches a crescendo when Jack belts out that famous line. In sports, you can have a crescendo. How about Elway saying 3 points isn't going to do it? He gets helicoptered around because he knows, I got to get a first down. I've never won a Super Bowl. I believe he was in his late 30s at the time, had to win it before he retired. And you just see the guts and the effort. And to me, the crescendo of the game was in Elway, was not to be denied. And it was that drive that would actually be the scoring margin of victory that would lead the Broncos to that world championship. I'll never forget being a kid in I think it was 88. Dodgers fans, correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't look it up. 88, Kirk Gibson was hurt, hamstring, legs, injured. Somehow they pinch hit. He wasn't even healthy enough to start. Hits the home run that sets the tone for the whole World Series. And really, each year when you watch a World Series, when they're kind of giving you the prequel to this next World Series, they show you that clip. The older man aging. I mean, the whole 162 games come to a crescendo when Kirk Gibson hits one out. And then I can also remember being in college when Michael hit his last jumper with the Chicago Bulls. After that sixth title, he retires. He would eventually come back, but we won't count the Washington Wizards years. But when he was with the Bulls, kind of takes that jumper from the free throw line, and it was kind of the crescendo of, yet again, 6 titles, ices the game with that shot. So you can have crescendo in sports. You can also have it in music. You music fans know all about Led Zeppelin. That's Stairway to Heaven graphic that I came up with. If you just Google musical crescendo, that song comes up because it rises to a crescendo, right? I would argue maybe the greatest crescendo, though, in musical history is Handel's Messiah. If you go back and read the story of how George Handel, he was really struggling in his career. He goes down into his basement, 24 days, and writes that whole musical production that we all enjoy in just 24 days straight, rarely stopping to eat. I mean, he just plowed through this genius level writing. And when he came up, he said, I do believe I've encountered the glory of the great God himself. Handel's Messiah. And when you get to the Hallelujah chorus, has there ever been a better crescendo than that? The King of England, when he heard it, rose to his feet. To be honest with you, they don't know if he was sleeping and it just startled him and thought he was supposed to stand up, or if he was moved by the music. Either way, it's tradition. When you hear this crescendo, what do? You stand. Because the king stood, everybody stands. But that is the crescendo. And you know what's happening in the production? It's the cross of Christ and the resurrection and the ascension that all culminates right there at the crescendo. So the title of this 2-week sermon series, just because of Palm Sunday and Easter, is the crescendo. Because I would argue the crescendo of world history is 1 week of time. 1 week of time. He rides in on a donkey. He has 1 week on the clock. It's a Sunday. He will be resurrected the next Sunday. I'm going to ask you, when I send out my pastoral reflection tomorrow, there'll be an attachment that has what you can read this next week to prepare for Good Friday and Easter Sunday. And I want to encourage you, if you've never come to a Good Friday service, change your plans on Friday night and come here. Because I believe if we're going to celebrate his resurrection, we also have to make sure we properly take in and comprehend his death. We'll do that Friday night right here. Everybody's invited, and I don't know about you, but I can't even celebrate Resurrection Sunday until I've properly gone through Friday. And Friday is important. It's the most important week in the history of planet Earth, where Jesus, literally, if you read John, he wrote 21 chapters to declare the beauty of who Jesus is and all that he did. 21 chapters. And yet when you get to chapter 12, he will spend the rest of his 9 chapters on 1 week. That's disproportionate, unless you're talking about the crescendo of world history. It rises to a climax from Adam and Eve all the way through the Old Testament. Life of Jesus, born of a virgin, arrives from outside the realm of heaven. The Son of God enters the world, living out a perfect life until he's age 30. His ministry begins, and then he lives it out. He teaches. He draws people to himself. He does all the miracles that the Old Testament say are going to be done by none other than the Son of God, the Messiah himself. But it will be 1 week where the camera lens zeroes in on 7 days, the crescendo of world history. Now, what we're going to look at today, sorry to disappoint you, we're not going to talk a ton about the palm branches, because what I felt led to show you was what I would call the prequel to Palm Sunday. Now, I love The Hobbit. Raise your hand if you agree, the book or the movie, okay? Guy loved Jesus. Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, they're buddies. They drink pints and challenge each other in England to write the best fiction to help people understand the nature of Christ. That was their motive. Tolkien criticized the Chronicles of Narnia, saying it's too childish. I would say it's too overt. The symbolism's too easy. So he makes it a little harder in The Lord of the Rings. I would say side by side, some of the best literature that's ever been written. Why? Because it's all aimed at Christ. They're both trying to help us understand. Well, The Hobbit is the prequel to The Lord of the Rings. It's how, Bilbo got the ring in the first place, and then you'll pick it up in the Lord of the Rings when Frodo gets his hands on the ring, and the rest is history in that story. I would say the prequel to Palm Sunday, and I would go so far as to say what got Jesus killed is what happened on Saturday before Palm Sunday. There are some actual traditions across the planet that love Jesus that make much of what is called Lazarus Saturday. Lazarus Saturday. And we're going to talk about Lazarus. I can't wait to meet him. He'll be there when the saints go marching in. And you'll be able to have dinner with him. I believe that. And it's 2 wonderful sisters that love Jesus in such a profound way. So we're going to talk about this family, because I would argue, if you're fascinated, Bill O'Reilly wrote a book called Killing Jesus, and it's about kind of the politics that surrounded the death of Christ. Well, it's all centered on what he does on Saturday. Excuse me. It's called Lazarus Saturday. Again, some of the Orthodox traditions really, they consecrate a whole day to remember the miracle that got him killed. Because the whole buzz, there would have been no palm branches, friends, if it weren't for Lazarus Saturday. I'm going to show you how this takes place. Open your Bible to John chapter 11. There's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. This is the 4th book in your New Testament. We're going to look at Lazarus Saturday. And I'm just kind of going to move through this text, and I'm just going to point out a few things to you. This is John chapter 11. John, the best friend of Jesus, who had a front row seat to these things. Matthew, Mark, and Luke, for some reason, chose not to write about Lazarus, Mary, and Martha. But John, writing last of the 4 gospel writers, thought that perhaps I need to write my own account because, understandably, my friends couldn't include everything, but you can't get to Easter. You can't get to Good Friday and Resurrection Sunday unless you go through Palm Sunday. But in John's opinion, you can't really understand Palm Sunday unless you understand Lazarus Saturday. So here we go. We're going to cover a lot of ground. I won't be able to pause on all of it, but I do want you to understand these wonderful words. Now, a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. This Mary, whose brother Lazarus now lay sick, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. Verse 3, so the sisters sent word to Jesus, Lord, the one you love is sick. And we're going to pause right there. We'll pick it up in verse 4 in just a moment, but I do want to pause to make a point. The one you love is sick. Raise your hand if you've been to Graceland, Memphis. None of you? Come on. Elvis Presley's house? Let's ask that question again. Who's been to Graceland? Raise them proud. Okay. Not enough of you. It's a fascinating time capsule to go through to see that before like DirecTV and stuff, Elvis had like 12 TVs in one room so that he could watch all the bowl games. It's a fascinating house. Why do we go to Graceland? Because, you know, if you call Elvis the king of rock and roll, you might be fascinated with his life. That's where he lived. And I would even argue that, you know, what MLK did in Memphis and what Elvis did in Memphis, these special people that kind of captivate a nation, make a city more affectionately known. When I went to Memphis, I made a stop there, and we went to some places that MLK made famous. So cities often become connected to the special people that live there. Bethany, friends, I've been there twice. Raise your hand now if you've been in Israel and you've been to Bethany. You may not remember it, but if you've been to Israel, you go to Bethany. There's Bethany right there. It's on a hill. If you can throw a baseball really far, it might take you 3 throws to get from the eastern gate of Jerusalem to Bethany. Now, you know, they tell you that you're about 2 miles from the eastern gate, but it doesn't feel like it. Because you got the Kidron Valley, you got the Mount of Olives, and then just over a ridge, they call it a hill, but think like East Texas hills, not Colorado mountains. You know, smaller hills. You go up a hill, and 2 miles from Jerusalem, Bethany. Now, Bethany's famous for a lot of reasons. Mary, Martha, Lazarus. Jesus liked to stay there, is what we're told, with his friends whenever he had to make that pilgrimage to Jerusalem. Not in the city did he stay. He often stayed with his friends in Bethany. It's still there. Bethany's the place where Jesus went back to heaven. And in Zechariah, we're told this exciting prophecy. Jesus is coming back, I believe, to touch down on the earth in Bethany. Look what it says. On that day, his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives. That's just right where Bethany is. Just east of Jerusalem. That's Bethany. And the Mount of Olives will be split in two from east to west, forming a great valley with half the mountain moving north and half of it moving south. Now, I believe that prophecy is literal, meaning Jesus is coming back, friends. That's the hope of the church. Not just that he came at Christmas, but there's going to be a second Christmas. And it'll be the greatest day this world has ever known. Bethany, that's where he's coming. In part, why? Martha, Mary, Lazarus, his friends. That's where he left. That's where he stayed when he was there. And there are promises to be looking to the east of Jerusalem, because one day God will roll back the clouds and his son will come, and that's where he's coming, to Bethany. Now, my house, we watch Disney movies some. We just went to Disney World. And when we found out that we were going to have a second daughter, I can't help it. I was watching a lot of Frozen with my older daughter, and I thought, how special that Corey will have a sister. Friends, in Scripture, we don't have more special sisters than Mary and Martha. These two women, they love the Lord so very much. Have you ever wiped anyone's feet with your hair, ladies? I believe most of you would if you knew Jesus. These women adored him. Special friends. They got to show him the hospitality whenever he came to Jerusalem. And I just want to give you one charge here before we go any further. I don't think there's nothing that you and I could aspire to that's better than what you read here. And so I want to give you this charge, and I want to give myself this charge, that we are to aspire one identity. And it is listed here in this text. Lord, the one you love. To be loved by Jesus, friends, there is no greater thing. To love him and be loved. I love how these women approach Jesus. The one you love is sick. I don't know if you've ever had anybody in your life. I'm sure most of you have. When you get news of cancer or you get news of something really challenging. I'll never forget, I was walking around Albany, Texas, and my cell phone rang. It was my dad, and he said, Tony, it's not good. It's not good. I went to the doctor, and I've got pretty serious cancer. And my stomach crashed. And I can't tell you how many times I sat on my knees by my bed saying, Jesus, my dad's one that you love. You love him. I know you love him, and he loves you. Could you please take this sickness away? That's how these women felt. I love how they pass word to Jesus. Now, he's not where they are. They send word to him. Jesus, could you please come back to the place that you always stay? The one you love needs you. I just got to tell you, friends, this world can be so distracting. It can make you think that your life is about so many things. Can I make it real simple for you? Be the one he loves. And how do you be the one he loves? It's real simple. You just love him. Anybody can get in line and opt into this. Tax collectors got in line. Prostitutes got in line. And they all said, I think there's something about you that I need. And they loved him, and he loved them. This is the easiest love that you'll ever receive. Because in the world, you got to earn it, and you got to keep it. But with Jesus, it's unconditional. But I just wanted to show you in this text, to me, why Bethany is so special is because these people are associated with it, that he loves. And they love him, and he loves these three siblings. And so as we progress through the text, just know that Lazarus Saturday is about deep affection between the Son of God and three siblings that he couldn't love more. And that same love is available to you and me if we would opt into it. But let's progress through the text, verse 4. When he heard this, Jesus said, this sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it. Now, Jesus loved Martha and her sister. He didn't just love Lazarus, he loved these ladies as well. And so when he heard that Lazarus was sick, this is just kind of an interesting sentence. When he heard they were sick, he stayed, meaning he didn't hop to it. He was 2 days' travel away. And he said to his disciples, after 2 days of hearing this news, he didn't immediately go. He said, we're going to wait. And so after 2 days, he says, let's go back to Judea. But Rabbi, they said, a short while ago, the Jews there tried to stone you, and you're going back? You ever seen storm chasers on TV? These crazy people that go right into the heart of a tornado? Like you and I, in Albany, Texas, the sirens go off because it's kind of in the central part of Texas in the north when tornadoes pass through, kind of by Oklahoma. You don't run into the tornado. Not unless you're like trained maybe and you just want to get it on film or whatever. But I say pass, hard pass, right? Well, the disciples know that Jesus is heading back into the eye of a storm. They know there's danger. And you can criticize Thomas all you want. But I say he's misunderstood in a way. He's human. But listen to what happens. Are there not 12 hours of daylight? Verse 9. Anyone who walks in the daytime will not stumble, for they see by this world's light. It's when a person walks at night that they stumble, for they have no light. And after he said this, he went on to tell them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I'm going there to wake him up. Now we'll come back to that statement, but I want to show you this. His disciples said, okay, let's be reasonable, Jesus. If all he's doing is sleeping, then won't rest make him better? He'll get better. That's what doctors tell you. Get some rest. Verse 13. Jesus had been speaking of his death, but his disciples thought he meant natural sleep. You can't blame him because Jesus is referring to death as sleep. But one pastor put it this way. The language of Jesus is to help us understand something unprecedented about him. You ever seen a great dog with the one that they belong to? And you ever seen, like at a park, I can't whistle. Can anybody whistle in here, like loud? Go for it. And yeah, all over the house. Now when that happens, when that dog owner does that whistle, what does the dog do? Just comes right back to the master, right? One pastor said it this way. Thanks, bud. One pastor said it this way. Jesus whistles and death obeys. Like a good dog returning to its master, Jesus is using this language to help his friends know, I'm not intimidated by death. I'm the one that breathed life into Adam and Eve in the first place, and Lazarus is asleep, and we're going to wake him up. And the disciples thought he was being literal, that he was asleep. And so he finally told them plainly, verse 14, guys, Lazarus is dead, okay? I'm trying to encourage you to trust me in this, but he is dead. And for your sake, I'm glad I wasn't there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him. Then Thomas, known as the twin. Some people think one of the disciples was his twin. Then Thomas, also known as Didymus, which is where we get our word twin, said to the rest of the disciples, Well, let's go die with him. That's good. And I don't think he was being sarcastic. I don't think he was being pouty, saying, well, here we go to die. I think the rest of the 12 was counting the cost, should we go? See, I believe when Thomas said, unless I see the nail prints, unless I touch the wounds, I'm not going to believe, because Thomas was maybe a scientific thinker that needed a little more evidence. If I'm going to die for him, I need to see him. And right here, he sees him and he says, if he's going, no backpedaling, we're going too. Now, yes, it is the eye of a storm. We know that the temperature was hot the last time we were there. But if he's going, saddle up. We're going to die. That's what's going on here. And so my second point is simply this. Live the real life fairy tale. Here's what I mean. After he had said this, he went to tell them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep and I'm going to wake him up. Again, maybe Disney's just too on my mind because we just got back, but it's amazing to me how often the Walt Disney writers couldn't think of a better story than a princess falling asleep. And what has to happen? Well, somebody better wake her up, because the Snow White or Sleeping Beauty, they're not going to wake up without the intervention of Prince Charming or whoever needs to give her true love's kiss or whatnot. Listen, friends, Lazarus Saturday, if you didn't have Lazarus in this miracle, I don't know what I would think about the resurrection, but I might be tempted to think it's not about me, it's about Jesus. Well, it's good that he rose from the dead, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to rise from the dead. Well, Lazarus is the guarantee that there's something in this for you too. 4 days in the tomb, we're about to see him, wrapped like a mummy. Sisters say, Jesus, please don't open that tomb. He stinks by now. 4 days it's happened, and yet we're going to see someone sleeping according to Jesus. That's all death is to him. Can you afford to get this wrong? I mean, I've banked my whole life on this, that Jesus is going to be my CPR when I flatline. I mean, can you afford to risk it? The people, I'm amazed, that will sit in a hospital knowing death is at the door and still say to Jesus, no thanks. I want to say, what do you have to lose? Why wouldn't you want to believe in the resurrection? What if it's true? Can you get it wrong, friends? I got to tell you, death is batting 1,000. Nobody but Jesus and Lazarus have been dead and then got back to life. And it's all rooted in the Son of God. When you die, and you will, I will, everybody does, there will be a flat line. Your body will die, but Jesus has made promises in this text. I'm the resurrection and the life. This has profound impact, not just on me. I'm going to get up out of the grave, and I give you this miracle to foreshadow what's going to happen in a week. But I'm telling you, I'm showing you this in Lazarus to give you hope that you too, like Lazarus, will live forever. Only believe in me. I am the resurrection. So friends, that's why I say it this way. This is a real life fairy tale. You fall asleep. That's all death is to the Christian. I know where to find my dad. I know where he is. I know where my great-grandmother is. I know where all my grandparents are. I know where all my loved ones are that love Jesus. The ones that Jesus loved, that loved him, I will see them again, friends. Why? Because Jesus performed this miracle on Lazarus Saturday to give you a picture of a promise made to you if you will believe. Verse 17, on his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Now Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary's house to comfort them in the loss of their brother. So Jesus arrives, and the funeral's going on. And when Martha had heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed home. Lord, Martha said, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now, her faith is there. You should have been here. You could have been here. You could have done something, but I still believe that even now, it's not over. That's amazing faith. God will give you whatever you ask. And Jesus said, your brother will rise again. And Martha wants to make sure she hears him right. I'm not asking for, like, at the end of time kind of resurrection. I know that he will rise again, verse 24, in the resurrection on the last day. And Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? And she said, yes, Lord. I believe that you're the Messiah, the Son of God who has come into the world. And after she said this, she goes and gets her sister Mary. And she says, the teacher is here and he's asking for you. And when Mary heard this, she gets up quickly, went to him. Now Jesus had not yet entered the village, but he was still at the place where Martha had met him. And when the Jews who had been with Mary in the house, comforting her, noticed how quickly she got up and went out, they followed her, supporting her as she was going to the tomb to mourn there. And when Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping. And he was deeply moved in his spirit and troubled, and he said, where have you laid him? Friends, don't confuse the emotion here. Jesus is not crying sad tears. Jesus is angry here. The text actually says he's snouting like a Mustang, like an angry one. He's not angry at any human. I think this is one of the times that he was so moved by his friendships with these people that he is just angry at Satan and death and the stench of it and funerals. It was not what God intended. You ever seen a little kid in a fist fight that he's so worked up that he just cries? That's the text actually says Jesus was snouting like a Mustang. So he is going to abolish death right before their eyes right here. He's squared off with it. And then he's so overcome, it says Jesus wept, verse 35. He cries 3 times. Did you know that? He cries right here in this text. He'll cry in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he will cry when he gets on the donkey and the palm branches come up. He's going to cry at their lack of repentance, at their preference for a political king, and he wants them to be more sorry about their sin than they're interested in overthrowing Rome. And he's just overcome with emotion these 3 times. Verse 38, then Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb, and he said, take away the stone. Martha said, nope. Be careful, Lord. By this time there's a bad stench. He's been there for 4 days. And he said, didn't I tell you? You're going to see the glory of God. So they took it away. He says, Lazarus, come out. Take off his clothes and let him go. Now I'm in chapter 12, and I'm going to finish here. I'm done after this reference that I want to make sure you understand. Verse in chapter 12, it says 6 days. Now Lazarus gets up. The miracle of all miracles, the resurrection from the dead. And what do you think, what kind of buzz do you think this created for Palm Sunday? I mean, all the Jews are coming for the Passover, and they hear that this prophet, Jesus, whatever he is, he can make dead people come back to life. And he gets on his donkey, and everyone's singing Hosanna. But 6 days before the Passover, now we're on Palm Sunday, Jesus came to Bethany, where Lazarus lived. Lazarus has been raised from the dead, and there's a dinner now given in his honor. Eventually, if you skip down to verse 9, it says, meanwhile, a large crowd of Jews found out that Jesus was there, and they came, not only because of him, but also to see Lazarus, the proof of this miracle. Verse 10, so the chief priests made plans to kill Lazarus. I want you to think about that. Not come worship Jesus because he can make dead people come back to life. They're going to try to bury the proof of his identity. So the chief priests made plans to kill Lazarus as well, for on account of him, many of the Jews were going over to Jesus and believing in him. See, friends, that's why I'm telling you, this last point here, embrace the Christian roller coaster is a point that I've kind of already made. It's quite a ride. This is the newest ride at Disney, and you don't know what's coming. Thomas didn't know what was coming. He goes into the eye of the storm. We're going to die with him. And Palm Sunday, no, it's happy. Roller coaster. Oh, that's fun. See him go into Jerusalem on a donkey being praised. Within a week, those same people would be shouting, crucify him. Part of being a Christian is learning to trust God in the roller coaster of life. But Thomas says, let's saddle up. And the final point is this. We need to make sure our motives are pure. Because, friends, this is amazing to me. Let's kill Lazarus. Talk about having your motives way off the grid. Not let's see if it's true, because if he can raise dead people back to life, and we can interview people and see the people that saw him dead in the tomb 4 days, friends, so that you wouldn't question, was it a coma? Was he just sleeping? Was he sick? No. 4 days, and the stench had set in. And he's resurrected. And yet the spiritual leaders of Israel say, let's not just kill Jesus, let's kill Lazarus too. So if you're going to understand Palm Sunday and the last week of Jesus' life, you have to understand that the greatest hope in world history is the resurrection. And Jesus gives us, it's so obvious, even a child can understand it. Why does he do it a week before? It's a finger pointing towards Easter Sunday. What I've done with Lazarus, I'm about to do. And this is the essence of why I've come, to take away death. And yet the leaders said, let's kill Lazarus. Friends, we need to make sure, some of you here, there may be somebody in the room that's not quite sure of the resurrection. Can I make a suggestion to you if you're not quite sure? Your motives might be the problem. See, I don't believe there's any good reason not to believe it. Your motives are in the way. You don't want it to be true for some reason. You've got to examine your heart and figure out why. Is it because you want to chase other things, prioritize other things? You worship your own intellect, whatever it is. But let me tell you something. When you stand before God the Father, he is not going to tolerate any excuse why you don't believe it. It is there for belief. It is there to rescue you from the jaws of death. And it has happened. And 500 people saw Jesus walking around after. And so, friends, don't miss the invitation of Jesus to not just believe in his resurrection, but to believe it for your own resurrection. That's why Lazarus got out of the grave. I have been watching the movie Hurricane. Bob Dylan's movie came out. I played a song for Hudson and Graham and Corey in the car. Bob Dylan's song about Reuben Hurricane Carter. And now they want to watch the movie. An injustice. An African-American man wrongfully accused. The police don't seem to care about who actually did it. They just want to find a scapegoat. And my boys, I'm thankful, and Corey are fascinated by this because I want them to care about justice. Well, the spiritual leaders of Israel don't seem to care about what's right. They just seem to want to frame Jesus for stuff he never did. For something that he never done, right? Friends, make sure your motives are pure. Make sure your motives are pure. And Jesus asked them, do you believe this? I'm asking you, Grace Commons, do you believe this? You need to, for your own good, for your own resurrection. Father in heaven, thank you for Palm Sunday. Thank you for the resurrection. Thank you for this prequel to the resurrection, for the fact that one day we will rise again because Jesus rose again. Please bless this Palm Sunday and our journey through this week. Bless our time. Even now, I ask you to bless our time on Good Friday and on Resurrection Sunday morning. In Jesus' name, amen.